So I've got a list of questions here that I'm going to read and then answer as I go along. So what does the pain feel like when walking with PC? I've had the fortune or misfortune to have tried quite a few different types of pain over my life. I've broken bones. I've scraped skin off myself. I have had a couple of fairly reasonably serious burns. And so, comparing PC pain to skin removal with a sort of graze or a bruise or being shot with an air gun, I would say that the most sort of obvious comparison for me is a burn. When I was a younger man, around the age of 13, I got a burn from about here to here, which took the skin off. And that sort of throbbing pain, that constant feeling of just discomfort, but more than discomfort, but pain, is it. And then being shot with an air gun, reasonably close range, boys will be boys. That kind of instant stabbing, oof, that is also part of it. So it's a kind of a mixture of burns and shooting with an air gun. How does the limitation on walking distance impact different aspects of your life? I mean, how doesn't it? Which is to say that if you think about all the things you do in life, they require some form of movement, whether that be getting up and going for a wee, whether that be making yourself some lunch, wandering around the kitchen from the fridge to the sink to the bin. These are all done bipedally. And obviously, or not obviously perhaps, but, as a PC person, I use a wheelchair quite a lot. But outside of the home environment, on a flat home environment, wheelchairs are kind of all right. They're a bit cumbersome. They don't go through doors as easily as just walking through one and all the rest of it. And of course, going from a frying pan to a sink, just doing that when you're bipedal and you have this sort of movement versus sort of doing this, again, it makes all aspects of life harder. If PC wasn't a factor, how would your life improve in your mobility and life choices? Can you envision specific goals or activities you would pursue? I think I try and avoid imagining alternate lives for myself. But I also think, I was thinking about this recently. I got these questions and I mulled them over, and I thought to myself, actually, what might be interesting is to just tot up coping time. And I mean, what do I mean by that? So I mean, every week I have a salt bath. Now, okay, some of that is pleasure, but honestly, I'm not a mad fan of sitting in a bath of hot water, but I do it for my feet. So we'll call that half an hour of coping time. Because, maybe I stay in it for 40 minutes. But, if we just take a bit off for the fact that there's some pleasure involved. And then if you go through, I spend time working on my nails every fortnight. That's another half hour or so. And chopping off skin and removing skin. I reckon, across a month with the baths and the things and all the rest of it, you're looking at sort of an hour a week, that's 4 hours of coping, and that's just a normal week. When things are bad, obviously it goes up, but also coping in a bad week is realistically all of your activities in a bad week are limited, for me anyway. So my range of available options in a day goes from quite limitless but relatively unlimited to do work, feed myself. That's quite restrictive. And I probably have about 2 months of that a year. 2 months a year where maybe 10 weeks actually, 10 weeks a year where my entire scope of life consists of doing my job and feeding myself. And that's really all I can do. I can watch a movie on a laptop, but I can't go out for a meal or whatever it might be, not without taking painkillers anyway. So, and if you add, sort of 4 hours a month, so what's that? A couple of days a year. If you add all of that up, you get about, say, 11 weeks a year. And those 11 weeks have been, if you will, taken out of the 52 weeks. And I guess that's, for me, that's a sort of measure of what could I do with 11 more weeks a year? What could I do with roughly an extra week a month? That's nearly 25% of a year. So if you imagine your average day, your waking day, let's call it 16 hours, assuming you get 8 hours sleep. Imagine somebody took 4 hours of your day away from you every day. What that would do to your life. I think you get a pretty close approximation, or I think you get a more perhaps accurate idea of, okay, well, to what extent does PC change your life? How does PC affect your relationships, considering the challenges it poses and the mobility and pain management? A lot. I know it's getting a bit repetitive now, isn't it? I think, obviously, you have to cancel stuff, you make arrangements, and you have to pull out. You have to get people to change things. You say, look, I can't make it, but you could come round for coffee. Which doesn't sit massively well with, the idea that, I'd like to be a sort of reliable human being. I don't consider myself particularly flaky, yet I would imagine that I can come across as quite flaky because I have to cancel stuff. And I think that, equally pain can make you quite a sort of grumpy douche. And that obviously has effects on your relationships, the narrowing of focus that pain produces. The fact that, your whole world narrows down to this point, specifically your feet, makes relating to the rest of the world outside of your feet much more difficult. You have to take yourself away a bit from something that is consuming yourself. So yeah, it definitely affects that. And I think, you can become irritable and a bit unpleasant. I think that's probably a fair way of putting it. What does a good day look like in terms of walking with PC? How frequently do you experience good days? I'd say I have about 7 months of good days a year. And then the rest split themselves between, like I say, the 11-ish weeks of like bad days, and then the sort of mediocre days that go in whatever the rest of that is, that my maths isn't going to do right now. But good days, I will experience usually about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks of good days. So my life will look one way. I'll go to the gym, I'll go out whenever I want to go out, I'll be able to park the car 100 meters away from where I want to go. I'll try not to, because every meter you save is a meter you can do somewhere else, but I can get to the sea because I can do the 40-meter walk from the car park to the water. These things, these are how a good day looks. And of course, conversely, a bad day takes all of those things. So I can't go to the sea anymore. And without taking painkillers, I can't go to the gym. But necessarily when I go to the gym, if I've taken a painkiller, I will only swim, actually, because anything else is just too much risk with painkiller in your system. Can you describe your approach to managing and recovering from foot pain associated with PC? Crikey. I mean, it's I guess it's an evolving thing. But it has required, and I'm now 45, and I'd say that I've got reasonably good at it in the last 5 years, and perhaps I could have got better at it earlier, but I think I resented it too much, which of course is counterproductive, because that resentment meant that actually it took that much longer for me to learn how to cope. But so like I say, I take a bath in salt water once a week. I use a Dremel to file down my nails approximately once a fortnight. I use the same Dremel, different setting, to take the skin off my feet. Again, usually about once a week, but when things are worse, it can go up to once a day. Cutting of the toenails, I don't know, once a fortnight. I sort of avoid that. I'm a bit like a dog in that way. Then diet. I eat as much anti-inflammatory food, so blueberries, walnuts. I try and avoid a lot of red meat. I don't drink very much. Certain types of exercise, so swimming I can do because it's non-weight bearing. Cycling I can do, again, because a lot of the pressure is on your backside. Yoga, but obviously only certain aspects of yoga. And I'm lucky enough to have had yoga teachers who are happy to sort of work with me on that. But I think, I guess, it says managing and recovering, and I think that's a really important aspect. if you go through a bad patch, and a bad patch for me usually lasts between sort of 3 and 6 weeks, and yes, there is a hard 100% margin for error on that figure, but welcome to PC. And I've had bad patches that have lasted 3 months. So, but I think that it is the the managing is the daily thing. The recovering, you have this bad patch where, I'm someone who exercises 4 days a week ish, sometimes 5. I go to a coffee shop each day because I work from home, so I think it's important to get out in the world once a day and just go and be where there are other people milling about. Obviously, all of that. So, the gym goes from, 4 or 5 days to 1 day. I allow myself a day where I will take a painkiller and go to the gym, so that I don't, go mad. The coffee shops go out the window, and fine, I drink coffee at home, but, the world just gets quite small and it becomes quite, I guess, depressing. You've got the pain, which is quite depressing and exhausting, as well as this, this curtailing of all of your life, and that takes a while. I sometimes say to people, I'm a psychologist by trade, and I sometimes say to people, it's a bit like having manic depression, where you have these depressive episodes where your body's in pain, you can't do much, your life is necessarily limited. And then suddenly, over the course of a week, everything starts to function again, the pain goes away, and it's like, wow, I can go to do that, and I can do that, and I'm going to go to the gym twice this week, and then next week I'm going to go 3 times, because, it takes a little while. But, you just have this sort of blossoming, but it can become a bit manic. It can become slightly, because there's another one. You want to do as much as you can, and actually that's the thing that one of the coping things that I've learnt, and I guess, with age, is actually, in those periods of good, you have to hold yourself back. You have to make yourself be a bit slower. Otherwise, the period of good will become curtailed by the fact that you'll do too much. So it's this very strange sort of conversation or relationship with yourself, where you're sort of letting yourself go, but then pulling yourself in, but then being cramped in. Yeah, it's pretty mad. How does experiencing chronic pain and frustration due to PC impact your mood? I mean, I kind of think that I've discussed that one. Shortness of temper is one for me. I guess that's the real sort of toxic, corrosive thing. Shortness of temper because you slept badly last night, because you're taking codeine on a regular basis and a bit groggy, and then of course when it goes good again, and you come off the codeine, you've got withdrawal for a week, so that's pretty funky. It's kind of constantly pushing you around a bit. Now, I think most of this video up until now has been pretty negative, so I do want to say this, that I think I'm very good at my job because of PC, because I understand having your mood pushed around, because I understand pain. So, a lot of psychology is about understanding people's pain, and understanding that people cope with pain in a variety of ways. And of course, PC is very much part of that. So, yeah, I think the idea that it's a gift is not true. But I think, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about, how part of meaning in life is suffering, is that suffering isn't what you do that gets in the way of life. It is part of that which gives your life meaning. And by that standard, I've had a really meaningful life.